And we're live. Good evening everyone. Magandang gabi po sa inyo lahat. Kamusta?
Hindi ka ba natatawa sa suot ko?
Oo nga hindi mo ako nasabihan.
Naka-modern Filipiniana.
Anong masasabi niyo sa attorney Doc D?
Oo, mamaya pang TikTok.
Magandang gabi po sa inyo lahat.
Okay,
It's Monday.
Yeah, good evening, Monday.
Good evening, Doc
And
D.
it's November 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course, kasama na naman natin. Kasama niyo na naman kami. I'm with Doc D.
I'm with Attorney E dito
sa Usapang Ed.
Oh, wow. Uy, in fairness, ang dami nang nag-review kanina pa. Tinitingnan ko nga on my way here.
Oo.
Kasi very tong guest natin very exciting. Ang pwede niyang i-share sa atin. Especially the private schools, talagang very interested dito.
Yes,
sa kanyang poder. Tama ba yan? Poder?
Poder.
Tama yung poder? Okay.
Kasi ano bang usapan ngayon?
Wait, kasi last Monday, we were talking about GASPE,
Yes,
right? So you interviewed me about GASPE and the possibility of expanding ESC to at the minimum key stage 1, no? K to 3.
K to 3.
Right? That's the objective, no? Hopefully of DepEd. But I know there's a law also supported by our guests that will expand the vouchers to all of K to 12.
Yes.
So
Pero,
parang continuation ito ngayon. Kasi
Oo nga,
nandito na siya. Mismo.
para mabuo na yung buong
yung kwento.
education, mabuo na yung kwento from basic ed this time, higher ed. Usapang usapang universal access
Yes, to
to
quality
tertiary education. O, ikaw na
Pero
magpakilala.
siguro yun, mamaya ipapaliwanag niyo yun. No? Baka marami nagsasabi parang technical UAQTE. But later on, they will realize impacted sila nitong
Correct.
batas na to. So ang ating guest ngayon, at talagang nahihiya kami kasi medyo na-late kami, ay isang bata pa to actually. No? Parang mas bata sa atin to, no?
Palagi ko.
Okay. He
Sa
is
buhok ko pa lang.
Chair of the House Committee on Higher and Technical Education, a representative of the Tingog Party List, and one of the most active legislators in the area of education. Obviously, he's also a member of EDCOM too, as a commissioner. So he has been actively pushing for reforms that strengthen the Philippine education system from basic to tertiary levels, and some of his key initiatives include advocating for teacher development programs to ensure quality education in both public and private schools, supporting measures to expand access to tertiary education, such as institutionalizing the ETIAP. Maganda din pag-usapan yan. Proposing that private schools also benefit from the Special Education Fund. Naku, tagal na natin itong gustong mangyari, no? Calling for bigger budget share for curriculum and teaching, to improve functional literacy among Filipino students. Naman ito. Big news. And urging the government to address classroom shortages. Big news again. And improve education infrastructure nationwide. We'd like to introduce to everyone, para makita niyo siya in person, Congressman Jude Acidre.
Thank you, Attorney Erap, Ma'am Doris, for having me here tonight.
Yes.
Si Cong Jude is also commissioner of EDCOM too.
Yes.
A current commissioner. O bumati ka muna sa marami mong fans sa Cong
Sa
Jude.
lahat po ng kasamahan natin, especially yung manunod, I'm sure marami tayo dito yung sa mga eskwelahan natin, no? Mga kaibigan ni Attorney Erap at ni Dr. Doris. Lahat po sila, lahat po ng ating mga kaibigan sa education sector, maraming salamat sa nanonood sa atin. Good evening po.
Okay.
Ang daming initiatives nitong si Cong Jude.
Yes,
Siguro sa mga hindi nakakaalam, si Cong Jude matagal naman na sa private ed sector. Tama ba o hindi? Hindi private ed. Ano talaga? Sa seminaryo.
Sa seminaryo.
Ever since I got into public service, ever since that I've been involved, kahit hindi pa ako congressman, I've always seen the value of really strengthening the educational system. And we've seen that parang ang tawag ko doon, it's a governance imperative. You cannot think of the other aspects of governance kung as a basic social investment natin, education is not given the priority and the importance that it deserves.
Very well said.
Kaya talagang I think more than ever, ngayon grabe ang usapan about education. Parang is every week there's news about education.
But in the last elections, di ba, we were pointing out that among the surveys taken, sabi nila, pag education advocacy mo, medyo popular yun among the voters.
I think it's really cultural also kasi alam mo naman sa mga Pilipino, di ba? sa pamilya, sa pagpapalaki ng mga bata. Palagi siguro na-ingrain din sa atin yung palaging paulit-ulit na sinasabi, ito lang yung maipamamana namin sa iyo. So I think that has transcended from just yung ito lang, itong ginagawa natin sa governance, from something that's very much intimately personal to many of us, diba? And we've seen many stories naman na people who come from lower income families have actually made it big. In fact, personally, kahit ako, no, for the reason why I'm also invested in the education sector is because part of who I am, I can really confidently say part of what I've achieved is because of the education that I was given, I was able to receive throughout these years.
Doris and Cong Jude, tama ka, Doris, education has become very popular.
It is.
And it is very popular. And when you talk about education kasi, like when you talk about quality education, who will be against it? So when you talk about education, parang rights-based, free, yan ang mga popular topics. Pero it is also unpopular when you deviate from those, So it really takes courage now to introduce real reforms, that may sound unpopular.
That's a good thing what we did with EDCOM, no? Because we were able to confront the issues, not just from sabihin na lang natin, from an aspirational perspective, but something really from an evidence-based approach.
Right.
And all those discussions sa EDCOM, of which I've been part for the last almost a year or 2 years na, no? I've been able to really see for myself directly from the stakeholders what needs to be changed. Kasi tama ka, Attorney Erap, it's very popular as a political slogan, di ba? It's popular as a campaign agenda, but we have to be intentional with education for us to achieve the results not that we want, but what the country deserves.
Yes.
At minsan malayo yun eh. You talk about free education, it's popular with the people, but it does not answer the other aspect. What does the country need for us to move forward? Where do we invest in terms of education? And that's where we need to be very careful, very critical, as well as, be really evidence-based, not just, yes, it's popular and people would tend to support it.
So I'll be very honest with you, Cong Jude, no? Kasi talaga yung private schools, very hard hit when free higher ed became law. And this is something really popular. So even if we tell all senators and members of Congress na allies naman natin saying that how can we rationalize this and implement some amendments kasi talagang nahirapan, no? If not really causing the decline, sometimes closure even, no, of private HEIs because of free tuition in SUCs and LUCs. And on top of that, they also got tertiary education subsidies.
Well, it's good that you raised that, Doctoris, no? Kasi even when I started as member of EDCOM, it has been pretty obvious talaga na there is a need to balance out things in terms of supporting public and private schools, no? Especially in terms of higher education, kasi kung titignan niya natin yung numbers, it's almost evenly divided in enrollment.
50-50 na siya.
And 70% pa nga of our HEIs are actually private run.
Yeah.
So there has to be a definite role for private education in the country. And I think not to take the credit away from free college education, because for me that is also a step in the right direction, given that for many of our Filipino students, no, access really is the number one concern. But nonetheless, dapat may nabalanse yun, or dapat balansehin natin with also the needs and the requirements of the private sector, private education sector, which is critical because some people might, people have all this misconception na pag private school, kaya nila yan, mayaman yan, mahal yan, kumikita yan. But they have to see that more than the revenues, if all they're earning, no, they have to see the contribution that these schools actually do, because in the end, and I know this is not a very popular thing to say, that's supposed to be the work of the state.
Yes.
That private schools are taken upon themselves so they all contribute to national development.
Yeah.
That's right.
And that's the reason why I say that even if access is of primary importance. And one of the key challenges that we face, we cannot also put it at the expense of the role that private schools play. And second, the stability of the entire sector.
Yeah. So, Kong Jude talking about, and Doc D talking about popular education initiatives. Of course, number one, or nandiyan sa top yung, yung free higher education, yung RA 10931, which was enacted in 2017. Back then, of course, ang syempre yung free education, yung popular feature yan, diba? And yung amounts natin mataas. So, ito yung sinasabi ko na once you disrupt that, it becomes unpopular. No? So, we'd like to talk about your yung reforms, at yung amendments that you'd like to introduce on ano yung mga top issues na you want to address, whether it's implementation or policy issues in
the universal access.
Well, first, we were all mandated to do a sunset review of the UAQTE. I think it's about time we do it. And in the committee where I chair, it's one of the key priorities that we're doing. In fact, we have recently filed House Bill 4270, which actually proposes amendments to the UAQTE. There are only medyo dalawang issues that we were able to really stress amendments. Yung una yung updating yung requirement on the listahanan 3 as we anticipate the finalization of the listahanan, because at the end we want to bring UAQTE to its core intention of ensuring access to students. We want to make it clear that that is the intent, diba? Much as possible, poverty cannot be a hindrance to someone, wanting to have a college education. But the second is also we'd want a full participation, equitable participation by private school sectors, by instituting, by ensuring that their fair share of that tertiary education subsidy is provided, and that in the calculation, hopefully, of how much is to be provided, actually is responsive also to the needs of students in the private schools. And secondly, the institution na ito of a voucher program that is for students who are studying in private schools. We cannot be truly universal with our universal free college education if we are going to leave behind or not at least equitably support the needs of the half of the student population studying in private schools, who people might be surprised to know also belong to lower income families.
Correct.
Diba? And we've seen kasi, and siguro this is another issue that we need examining. We've seen kasi that with all the limitations that we have with UAQTE, there has been some consequences that we've not really anticipated to the full. Like for example, the pressure on SUCs and LUCs not to accept students beyond their legislated fiscal capacity, because in the end there is no income that you can anticipate other than the reimbursements for the tuition that needs to be paid. So these are the concerns that needs rethinking. But for me, rather than look at this as problems, I see this as a way of an opportunity to also realign the free college education to something that benefits not only individuals, not only individual families, individual students, but the country as a whole. I agree that at the basic education level, there should be a rights-based approach to subsidizing students at whatever learning institution they are enrolled in. But in college education, I believe that other than ensuring student choice, other than ensuring that there's access, there's an equitable requirement to also respond to national development priorities. Remember, tertiary education is not similar to basic education that you have to be enrolled as a matter of right. This is also a workforce development initiative.
Correct.
This is a way for us to really put our resources so that we're hopeful that, to be realistic about it, in 4 or 5 years, you will see the new workforce And it would be to the greater interest of the country if the kind of workers are the ones that our economy needs, diba?
Yeah.
Or those that will result in the greatest return to our economy.
But how many, we discussed this when we went for a courtesy visit, not to your office, but how many actually share this kind of a sentiment? No, because, like rationalizing and making sure that, we will have priority courses responsive to national development goals may not exactly be popular.
Well,
ito na naman tayo, no?
It's
Dun
not
sa,
popular, but it has to be at the very least be talked about.
So how many in Congress do you think
I'm not
and
so sure.
EDCOM share the same sentiment?
In EDCOM, I think, especially during with the discussions on the workforce development, we've seen the value of ensuring that our enrollment or the identification of priority courses are congruent with national development priorities. We've seen that evidence-based, and we've seen also the potential by which other economies in the world or in the region even have taken that path. And you've seen that in Thailand, you've seen that in other countries na they have preferences for certain courses.
Yes.
And there's no need actually even for us to reinvent the wheel. It's something that has worked in other countries, something we need to do in our own.
Right.
And you don't even have to go any further. Like for example, we're exporting healthcare to other countries, but we've not really been intentional. Tinitingnan nga namin yung enrollment natin sa nursing, yes, malaki sa medtech, malaki sa pharmacy, malaki. But we're looking also of the other, like yung mga health professionals, optometricians. We've seen, but many of these are fringe courses to as of now, no, but if we had an honest to goodness, intentional effort to make sure these are the courses we offer because it's what's
Parang 5 times mo nang
needed.
sinabi ang salitang intentional. Parang doon yata tayo may problema, no?
Because
In the
everything has to be outcomes driven, diba? I mean, it's like having your own family and your kids. You'd want them to have a better life. You want to make sure that they get the best education possible to have a better chance at life. And it's easy for us to look at that from an individual level, but
As a nation.
as a nation,
Yes, as a
that's
nation.
also the same case.
Yes.
You want to see how we can be competitive. We can't just expect things to just suddenly the solution to present itself. We have to make sure that the conditions are right. We have, like for example, in terms of higher education, we have to make sure that the subsidies are preferred over certain courses. Or let's be rational about what courses to open in which schools,
Yes.
for
Yes.
example. All these things have to be carefully studied because and that's why I've been saying people, free college education is not free college education. Somebody pays for that.
It's paid by taxpayers.
It's paid by taxpayers.
Correct.
Diba? There has to be a, sorry for the word, an ROI for the economy.
Correct.
Diba?
Yes.
And this is real nation building. It's so easy to talk about nation building in terms of motherhood statements, but for every graduate that gets to college and gets employed is a practical way of nation building. And this is what we want to do with education as a tool, as a strategy towards building an economy that would, bring out the best in the Filipino.
Yeah. Cong Jude, one of the laments of the sector on the Republic Act 10931 is poor targeting of beneficiaries. No? Whether it's poor targeting of the poor and also targeting of courses and institutions. How do you plan to address that in your amendatory bill?
In with regards to the socioeconomic profile, that's why we're pushing for the clarification on the prioritization of those in the 4-piece program, the listahanan. I think that's a very responsive, objective tool that we can use. Secondly is clarifying that subsidies may be offered to private institutions, provided there's no look or sook in that area, but also
Alisin na yun.
That's something.
when the course
Yeah.
is not offered
Yeah.
by the look or the sook. And hopefully there's a corollary guideline later on the part of our education regulators to ensure that the proper balance and complementarity in terms of the offering of courses is also
That's right.
respected.
That's right.
That way, we can make sure that both the financing part and the regulatory part actually speak to each other, diba?
That's right. That's right.
Are more focused and
Yeah.
more strategic. And the other thing that we're working on is making sure that the unimplemented, there are two critical provisions that we have to implement. First, the student loan. Student loan is very critical. Why?
Yeah.
Because many of those who are studying in private schools come from lower income to middle income families
That's right.
who actually can afford.
Yes.
But for one reason or the other, usually temporary need, diba?
Yes.
Crisis. They have no one to go to, and that forces them to go to a public school simply because sometimes the financial problems gets compounded. But if there was at least like a student loan that could be the lifeboat, kasi may pambayad naman sa saktong oras, di ba? So that's one thing that we're looking into, and also the opt-out provision.
Yes.
Opt-out provision is critical that we are able to rationalize our already limited resources.
Kung Jude, Doc D, follow-up lang ako. Still on the targeting, Kong, I think for a long time, isa sa issues dun sa implementation is, sabi nga natin, poor targeting, lack of transparency in the selection of beneficiaries. Hanggang ngayon, it's not very clear how Unifast does it, how the system choose the beneficiaries. And then number two, yun nga sa no-sook, no-looks na para bang, yung sabi kasi prioritization will no longer apply for institutions in areas where there are no-sook,
Well, to be
no-looks.
fair to Ched, kasi Attorney Erap, an undertaking of this magnitude of providing free college education to millions of Filipino learners or any demographic for that matter has never been attempted in any economy of our scale.
right.
We have to be realistic about it, diba? And I think over the last few years, we've learned so much about, and I commend the chairman, Shirley Agrupis, have been very forthcoming about introducing we've been talking about rationalizing all our Unifast programs, making sure that certain demographics are placed in the most responsive program that addresses or responds to their need. Like for example, kung ang kailangan lang naman ganitong amount lang, ba't mo pa ilalagay dito, di ba?
Correct.
Or that can better be used to serve those who have greater need, di ba? That's the thing that we want. And also part of it, I think, more than the targeting is really the efficiency in the implementation of the program. And we're thankful that now we're at least of common mind that reforms needed to be undertaken in terms of that's why she's been talking, Chairman Agrupis, hello, Ma'am Shirley, has been talking so much about resetting. And I agree with her because much of the problems, the challenges that we'd had was more about efficiency, payment schedule, selection, diba? And maybe if we can improve and rationalize the different scholarship products, the Unifast products,
That's right.
then we can make sure that UAQTE becomes more responsive.
I'll respond to that no? Because you're correct, no, Cong, Jude. I think the private HEIs were saying that had the student loan program been implemented at the same time as free higher ed, then that would have been,
Yes.
but I think more ideal
Aspiring.
insofar as universal access is concerned. No, it became so lopsided because there was free higher ed in SUCs and LUCs. And then you have an implemented student loan, and then the TES that was provided is not exactly, intentional
what was
in terms
envisioned.
of, making sure that it's rationalized across public and private. That's one. And second, regarding the implementation, I went to Unifast very recently. Now, the new executive director now is Attorney Septon de la Cruz.
Yeah.
Hello, Attorney de la Cruz. And we were talking about the staff complement of the Unifast that will have to be, to ensure that we have the complement that will allow us to implement really efficiently. Because all these years, we know that parang naka-connect sila sa CHED.
Yeah.
Attached
And
agency.
attach sila. And even all the things that they needed were practically still with CHED, not exactly Unifast. Like finance is really still with CHED and all that.
Actually, Ma'am Doris, if I were to be really candid, no, I'm really I'm really proud of what Unifast is able to do with so limited resources, manpower, and even the expertise to implement billions of
Yes.
funds in Unifast. If it were up to me, maybe at a certain point in the future, it's really good to transition all of this into a financial institution as the
Separate.
best institutional fit for managing our scholarship programs.
So
in
really
the country.
independent. Really independent of
Yeah.
CHED.
And it should be manned by, well, I know there are very competent people now in the Unifast board, in the executive office, but still we need more financial people.
Yeah.
It's people sometimes misconstrue that because it's an education aid.
Yes. You need educators.
You need educators there. No, you need financial people there. So the proper projection should be made, the right intervention in
dun
terms
sa
of
loans,
efficiency. Yes. And by the way, going back, and that's why we're proposing a voucher program. Because the model we have and in basic education presents us as a really responsive mechanism in terms of transparency, efficiency, and hopefully with the right tweaking so as to address the peculiarities of higher education, we'll be able to really roll out a more responsive subsidy system that best meets the need of private education.
I just want to go back dun sa Unifast because I think it's strengthening the Unifast as an agency is really key, no? Because in 2015, if I'm not mistaken, dun na ipasa yung Unifast Act even before the Universal Access was passed into law. So it's really it's meant to be a separate agency, independent of CHED. Of course, the CHED chair sits as the chair of the Unifast, but it was envisioned as an independent agency. And of course, it can get experts, all the help that it needs. But of course, kasi yung mga birth pains, una, organizationally, administrative offices have to be attached to CHED. But I think it's about time that right after nung 2017 pa ang ating it's
Is
about time that
EDCOM
it's separate.
suggesting that? Is EDCOM suggesting
Well,
an independent entity?
in one of those discussions, I really raised that point of making sure that we are able to provide a more responsive institutional fit for Unifast. Of course, that goes with all our discussions with complementarity
Yes,
and
correct.
and student development. And hopefully, moving forward, we'll be able to really work on these proposals.
Yes.
I mean, it's not that easy. I don't think it will happen overnight.
That's right.
And it's good that we are recognizing all these needs, no? So moving forward, at least there will be a clear direction of where we want to bring.
Right.
So it's all about making sure that those who really need the help gets the help they need. At the same time, not to the detriment of those who would need equitable help.
Yeah.
It's responsive to them. Like, I've always believed in the role that in the principle that the middle class families should also get their fair share of government support. Right?
Of the taxes they pay.
It cannot be always the bias. Well, we always make sure that there's equity for those who have less, but it doesn't mean and shouldn't mean that we should leave to their own the middle class. And we know that in building up a stronger economy, the middle class has a role to play, has a very important role to play in ensuring social mobility.
Kung Jude, kanina, nabanggit mo nga ilang beses mo binanggit yung intentional, deliberate. Don't you think there should be some targets set for Unifast? For example, Unifast na lang siguro to produce, like for example, if you're funding scholarships, free higher ed, dapat ba bigyan natin silang specific target? For example, to produce a certain year, number of
Engineers, number of,
I think that's
healthcare
what
professionals.
Attorney Arap, I think that's what the workforce development plan is for. So hopefully when we have a better appreciation of what our workforce development requirements are, at least in the foreseeable future, then we will be able now to really attune. Well, I'm expecting that we attune our higher education priorities with whatever is reflected in the workforce development plan. I think that's the way to go moving forward. What I'm saying lang is we cannot be offering free college education as a matter of like, okay, all the doors are open, you get to choose what they like.
Right.
No, we have to make sure that the free college education is responsive to three things. Student choice, it's very important. Second, the potentials of the child or the learner. Of course, we don't want to force people to get into. We build on their strengths, no. But what really the country needs, it's a critical factor in the sustainability of the free higher education.
I have two points no, that I'd like Cong Jude to respond to. The first one is, when we look at the UAQTE, the Unifast board, it's a big board. There are several agencies are there, and there are probably one representative from private, na that's Kakopea. So it makes me realize our discussions about shared governance, that if you really want, for example, the Unifast to implement programs that will respect complementarity, then I think at the governance level, we should also have that level of shared governance between public and private. Because, I keep on saying this, is there a person whose mindset is both public and private? Because that person completely understands the context of both.
Well, I agree to you to a certain extent. No, there should be a more pronounced role for private schools, equitable as I may describe it. No, that there should be equitable representation in terms where the policies are made. But at the same time, we also have to clarify where the governance roles and the operational roles of Unifast should be clearly delineated.
Correct.
We cannot have a super commission or super board
That's
taking
policy making and implementing.
and trying to get into the operations. I don't think that would be efficient in the long run. So, yes, we should have at the policy level a more pronounced representation for private education stakeholders.
Yeah.
But at the same time, a clear delineation of where a governance, oversight functions begin and end, as well
versus
as
actual operations.
the operations. Because if you ask me, Unifast should be run like a bank.
Yes.
Diba? It should be run like a financial institution with people who are really adept in terms of accounting, in terms of even projections, making sure that
Right.
you have a 3-year, 6-year, a 10-year plan of where to put and by how much subsidy needs to be spent, and making sure that it's properly funded, and
Yes.
and also begs the question: how much do we expect in terms of workforce development
Yes.
impact?
Will connect with that. Yeah.
Diba? So we also make sure that this becomes a
completely aligned.
sustainable and a self-sustaining.
And right now it's not functioning.
I don't think it's
that way.
functioning that way, diba? So that's my take.
Yung second question ko kasi, na kaya nga para hindi ko na lang makalimutan din, but it obviously connects, no? The fact that it also came out in EdCom, we have to rationalize the provision of public and private higher ed. In other words, it's like we think that we're getting marginalized, no, the private HEIs, because of free higher ed, and then it is aggravated by satellite campuses of SUCs and mushrooming of LUCs, o tapos lahat yun, free lahat, di ba? So parang, eto na nga yung current data mo of SUCs, LUCs, padami pa pala ng padami.
Well, anyway, the way I look at this, no, because I sit in many of the board of SUCs also, as being a member of the Board of Regents, I think the reason is less of it really being targeted of trying to compete with each other, but really because we haven't really confronted the issue as a unified force.
Both public and private.
When you are SUC, you just look at the SUC data, you look at what's in your particular locality to the exclusion of others. When you're an LUC, you tend to be trapped in that mindset that you focus on what's needed in your particular LGU, and that's it. At the same time, private schools normally work within the framework, whether it's a faith-based support or the alumni or whatsoever. I think a critical step towards that end is really making sure that complementarity, as I've always said, should always gear towards building a community that delivers higher education, whatever the nature of the learning institution is. Look at it as a common field, so to speak. Not just, and then once we've arrived at that perspective, hopefully we'll be able to bring people to that a common understanding that higher education does not really distinguish between private and public.
Yeah.
It's In a way, it's
Agree.
some accident of structure.
So, paano
But
kaya
you
tayo
have to
makakarating? Paano tayo makakarating sa ganung klaseng mindset, no?
Yeah,
Kasi may divide
completely
yan eh.
agree. Oo. Tama kayo eh. Kasi parang yung members ng board, dapat nandun sila. Of course, they represent certain sectors. Pero once nandun na sila, they don't wear exclusively the hat of an
Yes.
SUC or youth. Dapat the entire education
Yes.
sector. Kasi alam mo, Cong Jude and Doc D, because I used to represent Cocopeya there no, for the longest time. Yun ang wala eh. They don't divest
Yeah.
themselves of...
So
They
parochial.
represent very parochial. So lugi lagi ang private.
And apparently conflicting mindsets.
Yeah, kasi kung halimbawa ganito operationally magdi-discuss, let's say when it's about funds na going to SUCs, LCUs, the private sector has no say kasi private kami eh. Pero when it's about TES sa private, everybody has a say.
Yes.
Lahat ng talo lahat.
Yeah. No, but you're saying if
override.
everyone will not wear their hats and will just think of themselves as like accountable to the education sector, then they should all
Wala.
be able to
Talagang
participate.
yung laging
in the
ano.
end, complementarity is not just something operational. It's really also in the terms of the ends that we want to achieve, diba? Like for
Right,
example, there are certain courses that private HEIs are in a better position to deliver, and there are certain aspects like science, engineering
Agriculture.
that SUCs are also in a better position to deliver,
Yeah.
and that should be clear to all sectors. In terms of offering course offerings. And that's only one example, diba? But you're also looking at, like for example, faculty development. Many of our private HEIs are having problems with the faculty development of their own faculty, and sometimes research work or contributions are rather limited, or they usually confined to their own, diba? But if we talk about a broader a broader higher education field, then you see how we can actually complement even in terms of
Yeah.
higher
Pero
education.
ano ko kasi
Sige.
dyan,
Founding
remember, we
development.
guested an SUC president. At ang sinabi niya, nagtayo siya na isang campus sa isang, say, city, no, kung saan siya nag-satellite campus. And he was trying to keep his admission requirements. It was the local government officials who were saying, hindi pwede, alibaba mo yan. Because we want more of our, more of our constituents in your school. Kaya nga tayo nagtatayo ng satellite campus. So that all your thinking and all your rationalizing and all your adherence to certain standards, parang thrown out the window
Well,
lahat.
because in the end, first, it's a matter of the baseline concern is really access. But if even policymakers, including LGUs, are able to shift their mindset that hey, you're not only the solutions is not only to create your own school, your own look, or not only to create a satellite campus, but maybe there are private schools there that you can support, right?
Correct.
So if we had that broader mindset,
Yes.
then we can look at other permutations of how our delivery of
Because
higher
we've seen that in
education.
some cities, no? For example, nag-overflow na yung city college niya, so nagbigay siya ng scholarship sa mga private HEIs. So that is, to my mind, something that allows for thinking of both public and private. But sometimes that's not the case.
Okay, on a more practical level, when was the time that we were able even to gather stakeholders
O,
from...
di ba you want to do that?
Yeah, we're looking forward to doing
We will
that.
support you.
Because we feel like that's the first step. Being aware na, hey, hindi lahat pala ng HEI, SUC. That the Philippine higher education system is not simply SUCs. That you have half of it are actually HEIs. And that has to come with some
LUCs also.
clarity,
Yeah.
di ba? And LUCs have a role of being that hybrid between
That's right.
TVIs and
That's right.
SUCs or the HEI. So
Yeah.
those are the things that we need to consider.
Yeah, but Kong Jude, that's one of the primary objectives of the Universal Access Law, which is empowering students' choice. Kanina nabanggit mo yon, yung the giving the students the choice where they want to study, whether in government HEIs or in private. The problem really is the student mobility. Yon ang alam mo ito ang isa sa pinakamalaking problema na maraming private schools sa UAQTE law. Kasi yung batas nung pinag-uusapan yan, I was part of the committee deliberations then. pag binigay mo so free higher ed tapos may TS, ibig sabihin makakapili yung bata. So halimbawa nasa SUC siya, kung gusto niya mag-aral sa private, makakalipat siya using TS. Nung una nga may attempt na vouchers so para magamit yun. Student mobility is one of the features. Ang nangyari, nawala yon. Kasi malalaman mo na ikaw ay eligible sa TS kapag naka-enroll na at saka sa free higher ed. So, ang nangyari, walang lipatan na nangyari, walang pilian.
Mali implementation.
Kung ikaw ay nasa SUC, doon ka na hanggang free higher ed, hanggang hindi ka na alis doon. Kung sa private, kung gusto mo lumipat sa private, hindi mangyari yun kasi malalaman mo, middle of the school year na In fact, Kong Jude, ang problema pa sa private, pati yung TS beneficiaries, nag-enroll na, tinanggap na ng school.
Kasi hindi pala siya beneficiary.
Tapos kalagitan, hindi pala makako. Anong gagawin ng school? Anong gagawin ng school? Sino magbabayad?
The implementation
So,
issue
student
talaga
mobility.
kasi in the first few years of implementation, they process the applicants start of the school year na. And they announce it within the SEM whether or not may grant or wala.
Correct.
Oo. So
Dapat
dapat before, right?
Dapat
Because
yung
it's
enrollment
meant to be
period,
choice.
admission period.
Well, it's good that this problems, but if you look at the changes that we've introduced in the GASPE law, making sure that it facilitates mobility, in the proposed GASPE, expanded GASPE bill, that is something that we're also going to look at as a model in case we are able to come up with a voucher system for private HEIs. It's far from being a perfect system. And it's good that we're being able to identify all these problems.
Right.
And now that we were able to secure the payment of the backlog of the UAQTE back accounts with the SUCs, then we can somewhat clear the books moving forward. Then we can probably rationalize on.
Pero even with private HEIs, ang daming utang. I mean, they complained to us. They were saying, like, there was one university president na may mga TES, tapos meron din siyang hospital. Ang utang ng CHED sa akin, several millions. Ang utang ng PhilHealth sa akin, several millions. Ang utang ng gobyerno, di ba? And to
I think
that,
that's a mindset that we need to change also. Kasi ako personally, no, and I don't presume for everybody to share this mindset. Government has to be aware that whatever private stakeholders do in terms of educational healthcare is basically government's job.
yes.
And government should come from an attitude that we are thankful that they're doing it. That's why we should be ready to support where equitable support is required. Kasi mahirap po na isipin, hindi na ho yung mindset na private school yan, eskwelahan niya na mayayaman.
That's right.
It doesn't work that way anymore, di ba? So we need to make sure that equitable support is provided, and that government should come from an attitude of kung pwede nga urgency in meeting their obligations with our private partners.
Right.
It's a partnership that should be built on parity.
Yeah.
And not to the detriment of the other.
Another issue, talagang pagkakataon. Nare-recall ko kasi bigla
Mga 2 hours pa tayo
Oo.
dito.
Pero alam mo, talaga it really takes courage. Kaya talagang very courageous of you,
very,
Kong
very,
Jude. Kasi
very non-traditional.
merong may introduce and to look. Kasi once you introduce a bill, di ba, na-open lahat ng ito. At there's an opportunity to correct. One of the issues is yung residence sa mga estudyante. Kasi ngayon parang hindi na dapat issue yung residence kasi ang mga estudyante hindi na sila, they're not stuck in their regions, localities. They should be able to study wherever they want using that under the UAQTE. Kasi dati hiningi pa yung barangay certificate. Napopoliticize, in other words.
Well, I think yung residence, the intention was really to establish lang the veracity or the validate certain personal information. Like to believe that was the case. No?
And there is no SUC, LUC.
Yes,
They
yes.
wanted to establish that they were in an
but
area.
now even with what we're proposing is that residency is a matter of consideration, but it's not the only consideration. Like for example, even in issues like may SUC naman dito, tas may HEIs, why do we have to give to the private HEIs? But what if the course is not being offered by that particular SUC?
Correct.
And that HEI is in a better position to offer that course?
Right.
That should be a consideration.
Right.
So we're not saying that residency should not, it might
Shouldn't restrict.
But it's
It
not
should
the
not-
only.
but it should not be the only
Yeah.
consideration.
Yes.
That's right, that's
oo.
right. Pero
Tapos,
siguro, Cong Jude, yung ano mo lang kasi dyan talaga is, kanina pa sinasabi mo na yung access, no? Pero di ba access to quality education? Because isa rin criticism yan sa UAQTE, no? That some of the providers
In a perfect world,
are really
Dr.
not.
Dor. Yes, yeah. In a perfect world, yes, I would agree with you. But sometimes, in that, I just want to share with you something. No, I was a commencement speaker for a satellite campus somewhere in a region very far, and they were offering office management
Office management.
curso in the middle of rice fields, office management. And I was telling the president, "Oh, you should stop offering that course. There's no opportunity for them here." Then when they were on the stage, the mother, one of the mothers of the graduate, yung parang cum laude nila, told me, "Sir, first graduate
Yeah,
Cong
first
sa
generation.
family namin. How can you argue with that?" Diba? We can all have these lofty ideals that, education to be responsive. Yes, and I totally agree. But we cannot also dispute the fact that these are the first generation graduates of their own families. Wala na akong pakialam siguro kung anong kurso graduate.
Yun na nga.
Diba?
But now you're violating your own principle of
No.
intentionality. So that should
what
be
I'm
factored
saying,
in.
I'm saying, we're not yet there. We should stay focused on making sure that intentionality, that there has to be a certain... but we
rationalizing
cannot we not curse the entire
That's right,
situation
that's right.
simply
Yeah.
because it falls short of
Yeah,
one
yeah.
standard.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is that there's still value in what... I
See,
know
I
we
just
want...
wanted you to say that.
we want quality education.
Yes.
Di ba, we cannot also downplay the
Kasi
fact
lagi
na...
nating yun, di ba? Access to quality education ba? O access lang? O dapat
Parang
quality
hindi pwedeng
education?
pag-iwalay.
Parang we all agree on that, no? But we cannot say that this is broken simply because it does not arrive at the quality that we all desire. It's a process. Hopefully, 5 years from now, we're much better.
Pero may problema ako sa'yo dyan, Kong. What if hindi naman employable yung bata? Gumraduate nga. I call it the valueless diploma.
Kaya nga, ma'am, it should not prevent us from aspiring to be even better. I hope in 5 years that will no longer be the issue.
Yeah. Kong, ano pa tayo eh? Andito pa rin
Two
ako
hours
andito
pa
pa tayo
tayo.
sa oversight, sunset provision. Ang isa pang issue sa private higher education sector is yung administrative burdens in participating. Na sobrang daming requirements. Alam nyo, Kong Jude, may mga ibang private colleges and universities na hindi na lang nag-participate dahil, alam mo, ilan lang ang beneficiaries? 5 lang or 3. Pero grabe yung administrative burden. Ang daming nire-require. That's number 1. And then number 2, in certain areas in the past, ito nakakarating lang sa amin, sa Kokopea at sa akin mismo, na highly politicized in some areas. Halimbawa, so it adds to the administrative burden. Halimbawa, you have to provide proof that every student has actually received physically the amount. Talagang pipirma, tapos may mga programa na parang politiko. So, yung iba, paano natin maiwasan
Dapat
na
may
yan?
subtitle yung buntong
kasi
hininga.
para bang, yun, alam mo, Kong Jude, sa ngayon, di ba yan ang reklamo ng mga tao? Para bang
lahat na
pipila, parang akala mo ay pera nila pinamigay.
Pera pala natin.
Oo, so, paano po maiwasan yan? Looking
Well,
at the...
ako naman, no, all of these things, there's a lot of room for improvement, diba? Marami tayong pwedeng ayusin pa. I think yung mga sinasabing politicized, no. Speaking as a person in politics, sometimes also it's damn if you don't think for us. Kasi pag hindi rin namin ginawa, sasabihin wala kaming ginawa. But ano naman nagawa namin for education, diba? So we all hope that our level of political participation will not be
a burden.
not be measured against things like this. If you ask me as a person in politics, I would rather want to be remembered for the laws and the policies that I'm able to push.
Correct.
But unfortunately,
That's not how that's a perfect world.
it's not the perfect world.
Yeah, pero Kong Jude,
In the current state of
Of course,
affairs.
it matters. I think ang problem with it is
Is
not because
administrative.
yung dumadagdag, alam mo, like dahil nga doon may mga
That's
lugar
the
na
reason-
no-suk-no-look. So, 2,000 nakapila.
That's the reason, Attorney Era,
Ipirma
why
isa-isa.
I believe the institutional fit
Correct.
of
The agency.
of the agency of Unifast should be
That's right,
responsive
that's right,
to its
that's right.
need, diba?
Right,
If
right.
it were like, say,
That's
for
right,
example,
that's
if it's a financial establishment or institution, like a bank, for example,
Right.
then it'll be more efficient. It'll be more straightforward.
Right,
than that,
right.
diba?
Yeah,
And-
actually,
and
Cong
ano,
Jude, ano lang, no? In the initial years when we were working with Unifast, no, it was still Executive Director Mimi Season then, they were looking at what was being done in the voucher application portal, where there is a portal that can be accessed everywhere in the country, right? Because there's a the portal hosted then by DepEd. And so the applications can be processed even by 100,000 applicants because the system will rank them based on a qualifying formula that was approved by the agency. In other words, hindi siya mano-mano, hindi siya pipila, things like
the
that.
fact that we are able to announce the results of the test applications in the middle of the year already shows how much is to be desired in improving it, diba? In terms of responsiveness. I do share your frustrations. I do have constituents who come to me saying April na wala pang result yung test namin. Or
We're putting the systems in place.
I think that's something that everybody share. But to be fair kasi to CHED, no, to be fair to all the stakeholders, it's simply too much work for an institution, office that we have for university.
Right.
And I think we have to be honest enough also to say that we need to really revise that or expand whatever capacity is needed
Right.
vis-a-vis the volume of funds that they are able to manage and all these things. I'm sure there is technology available.
Yes.
PAYAC has been doing a good job trying to manage the voucher system for basic education. I think that's a good model to start with. But then again, even the rationalization of student support, student aid program should also be reviewed. Kasi, like for example, habang wala pa yung isa, in-applyan lahat. Kung saan siya unang pumasok, di ba? And I
Yeah.
don't think that's a good thing, di ba?
Right,
Because you
right.
have to make sure that
Yeah.
it's equitable for depending on the needs of the student as well as the school requirements that where they are. So yun yung
Yeah.
sinasabi ko. I think that's what the process that we're doing with all this bill and the sunset review and the review of the UAQTE and of course the process that we're doing at EDCOM. And this has helped us clarify. Even the bill that we have filed is already a process, a product of what we did with EDCOM. And hopefully we are able to really focus on those reforms that are critical to ensuring that we are able to make the most out of our free college education.
And Unifast is a creation of Congress. So Congress can control it. I agree, it should be strengthened, it should be empowered. And I think by doing it kasi, by empowering Unifast, Doc D, you also ease a lot of burdens from CHED. Kasi yun nga dati ang reklamo ng CHED, sabi na dami na naming ini-implement Pati, kasi nung yung
And it was
Unifast
never
ginawa.
constituted to be.
Yeah, yung Unifast
Diba?
kasi, natatandaan ko yun, si Cong Roman pa yung one of the authors. Pinag-uusapan namin nun. Ililipat na lahat ng pag-manage ng subsidy program sa higher ed sa Unifast para matanggal na yan from CHED kasi dagdag pa sa trabaho nila. Pero parang hindi pa talaga natin na
Hindi siya
fully
naihiwalay.
realize. So it's really about time we do it.
I think it's also the overall governance culture we have in the country. It's really making sure that, especially when you're accountable for certain decisions or for certain funds, that there's a tendency to hold back.
Correct.
But I think finding the most responsive institutional fit will be the permanent solution to that. With like for example, if processes or technology are properly
right.
adopted.
Correct.
In this time and age, I don't think that would be something that mahirap gawin.
Ito, interested ako kahit na last 5 minutes daw. Proposing that private schools also benefit from the special education fund. How
Yes,
do
we have a bill for
proceed
that, making sure. Kasi, okay, my mindset is this. This is coming from my experience working with hospitals as well. The healthcare also is one of our key advocacies. When we look at the capacity of a certain locality in terms of hospital bed capacity, the law does not distinguish between private hospitals, public hospitals. They look at everybody who needs hospital care.
The law. Which law is this?
I mean, PhilHealth or whatsoever,
Okay.
the universal
Universal.
healthcare,
Okay,
di ba?
okay.
So you look at
Okay.
the bed capacity,
Yes, for both public and
you
private.
both are public private. We come from the mindset that we look at students, especially in basic education, because the SEF is more targeted towards basic education. The law should not distinguish also where those students are studying,
Yeah, good.
as long as they are learners in the same local government unit. So a concrete way of putting that into action is
So is this a
making
law
sure.
or are
That's
you
a bill.
amending?
We are a bill. This a bill.
It's a bill that
amending the
local
SEF.
government.
Provision in the local government code. No? Kasi ang history niyan, pero it's about time nga na mag-evolve na. Kasi ang history niyan, yung dati, nagbabayad din kasi ng real property taxes ang private schools. No? Pero tinanggal yon. Basta eskwelahan ka, yung property mo used for education purposes,
Yes, now-
ano ka na, exempt ka na. So kaya yung nako-collect, so parang hindi na sila sinali sa SEF kasi direct benefit na sa kanila. Pero ngayon parang it's two different di ba? Two different
That's why I'm
benefits.
saying we need to
Oo.
evolve also our
It
mindset in
should
terms
evolve
of,
na nga. Oo.
of looking at the field as something common rather than simply pag private ko, bahala na sila sa buhay nila,
Yeah.
di ba?
Parang
Can it be like
hindi,
that?
hindi na kayo kinolekta eh. So yung nakolekta from others who pay real property taxes, government lang yon, di ba? Yun ang in effect. Pero dapat baguhin na nga.
That's right.
Malaking bagay yan. Kong
Big,
Jude. I
malaki
think,
to.
oo.
The special education fund will allow us to
And the realization
have
came
access to
during the
this.
pandemic kasi,
Yeah.
di ba? Yung
I
hindi
think
magamit na for
It's
private
not only
initiatives.
because na gusto natin, di ba? I think it's also a matter of right.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a matter of justice.
Yeah.
Constituents din naman yung mga
Constituency
Kaya
yan.
nga eh. Tsaka
local
taxpayers.
Nagbabayad din yun ng buwis.
Nakakaawa nga
di ba?
Alam mo ba during the pandemic, we had reports like that na parang if they clean up a public school, they cannot use those same equipment for private kasi private daw sila. I said, what? Did the pandemic hit only the public schools?
But it's an evolving
Or
concept.
did the calamity hit only the public
That is the
schools?
thing that we need to ask also from our private sector, private education sector friends, no? That this is all a product of a growing re-understanding of what education as a public good is. And this is something that you need to be more patient with government
right.
because not everybody share the mindset that we have. But for as long as we are clear and the more that we work together on this, I think that there is a better chance
Right.
for us convincing our public education stakeholders that we are the other, as I always say, the other lung of public education of the Philippine educational system.
Alam mo kasi nga yung SEF in the past for longest time, DILG ang naglalabas ng guidelines on how the local government will use the SEF. Parang di ba, sabi nga natin local autonomy, dapat ang nagde-decide how to
board.
use it. Local school board eh. Pero DILG is part of the executive, central government. So parang nawala. So kaya nga talaga dapat i-address yan through a law. Para yung paggamit, give them more Kasi sabi nga nila yung pag ang decision is in the locality.
Actually, naalala
It's
ko
more
si
effective.
Dr. Campos, which I think Cong Acidre also resonate with this. No? Yung parang lagi sinasabi na government support for private education. Bakit support? Di ba kami nga ang tumutulong
Tumutulong,
sa gobyerno? So, di ba pwedeng private ed support
Yeah.
to government?
Yeah, oo nga. Nalilimutan nga kasi gano'n. Parang pag tataasan natin yung subsidy,
Kasi
akala nila tulong sa
No,
private school.
because I remember I was talking
No.
to Bishop Ambo about this. And Bishop Ambo was saying, to Doris, kasi dapat hindi assistance. Kailangan partnership. Sabi ko, Bishop Ambo, yun lang po kasi yung pangalan namin based on the executive order that created the PAC. But really, the advocacy is public-private partnership and complementarity. Yun talaga yun. And I think you're an advocate of that also.
Well, we're working hard on making sure that it becomes a more what do you call this? A foundational framework for the structure of the Philippine educational system.
That's right.
Okay.
Ang
So
ganda
alam
nun.
ko lang na tayo sa oras.
Pero kailangan mag-part
Kong
2 si Cong Jude, no?
I'm sure baka part 2, part 3 sa dami ng na-open niyang
Pwede rin
issues.
tayo doon sa office niya. Maganda doon.
okay.
Dali natin yung buong tech natin, no? Lottie, no? Dali natin
Para makabawi
namin kayo
tayo
doon.
kasi tayo late eh. Siya yung maaga dito. Pakaaga ni
Ganda ng
Kong
office
Jude.
niya. Pero seriously, before, di ba, Cong Jude and ERAP, we always say this. When we started, like, I did sector work, siguro 2009, no? When I joined CAP, konti-konti lang noon namang nag-uusap about complementarity. Ngayon, no? It's all over the place.
It's a buzzword.
Yeah, so, it's in the Philippine Development Plan, EDCOM agenda siya and all that. So it's not as if nothing has moved from several years back.
But we just need to move faster.
Yeah.
Because functional
tsaka
illiteracy is moving fast
Faster
also.
than us.
Faster than us.
Hindi, buti na lang
Nag-double
nga si
na daw
Cong
eh.
Jude. Buti nga si Cong Jude. Talagang tinitake on niya to.
Yeah, oo.
Because
So,
not all party lists, are
not all
actually-
legislators.
Or not all legislators.
We do our little best.
Maraming trabaho kasi pag sa education, maraming research, maraming nag-validate. Hindi
Pero
pwedeng bola-bola lang.
pinagpapa-abolish ng senior high. Nabasa ko na naman. Abolish senior high na naman.
Ay nako.
Anong nangyayari? Anyway,
Abutin tayo ng alas 11 dito. But anyway, Cong Jude, thank you. Siguro you may want to say
Yes.
your siguro last message for all
but
our
end of part 1.
end of part 1.
End of part 1. Part 2 to eh.
Well, of course,
sige.
thank you for having me here. No? Thank you for the invitation, of course, for this opportunity. Sa lahat po ng mga kababayan namin, maraming salamat din po sa, we get a lot of good feedback with what we're trying to do in terms, especially with EDCOM and also in the committee. And we hope that this becomes a starting point of even closer partnerships, especially among the private and public education stakeholders.
Okay.
Maraming ang good
salamat.
comments
maraming
dito.
good comments.
Cong Jude, you may want to read the comments about you and Tingog and all the work that you're doing. Okay, so I'd like to take this opportunity to congratulate DepEd NCR. I just came from the event. It's their golden anniversary. And,
Happy anniversary,
Yeah, we really
DepEd
have
NCR.
to support DepEd. No? So a lot of things that will really have to be done in basic education. And Cong Jude being part of EDCOM.
I-guess nga natin ang DepEd NCR.
Guess natin si RD Joyce. RD Joyce, ha? Talagang nag-Filipiniana pa kami para dyan sa event.
Okay. Maraming salamat po sa inyo. And ano pa? Meron pa ba?
No, we just really would like to thank Cong Jude for
Cong Jude.
being,
Maraming salamat.
being
Yes,
here early. Nauna pa siya sa atin.
Ano pa siya?
Yang hiya naman ako.
Oo nga. Akala ko
Parang
biro lang yung alas 6 nandito. Nandito.
Parang gusto ko nga siya mag-usap. Parang mag-umpisa na siya, di ba? Kahit siya na. Kaya naman niya, di ba? Sige, so we'll do a part 2 of this.
Thank you, Cong
Thank you,
Jude.
thank you.
Salamat. Salamat.
Thank you, Cong
Attorney Arap.
Jude. Okay, so, ayan na. So, wait. So, when, on Monday, that's November 10,
November 10.
right, on November 10, right? We have Christian Esguerra. I think Christian Esguerra will
Christian
be
Esguerra,
with us
ayan.
for Usapang Fake News.
Usapang fake news. Oo,
Yun.
nako, exciting. So, abangan niyo po yan sa Monday, November 10, Usapang
correct.
fake news.
Okay.
Alright, maraming salamat po sa inyo lahat. Muli niyo na naman kami nakasama with Doc D
And Attorney E,
dito sa
Usapang Ed.